Okay, so this is basically talks about MDG, the job outlook. So basically, MDG, right? So this master data governance. So recently, this you hear this MDG. I mean, this kind of MDG as a solution from SAP. So the reason is earlier in your traditional or in your if you are working on ECC or earlier, right? So with the SAP don't have or there is not much emphasis on this master data, but recently with S4 introduction what happened or so SAP made this MDG as a kind of mandatory for master data governance or for your master data maintenance standpoint. So SAP actually come up with this MDG as a solution. And that's where you see as many of the customers are big customers when they're transforming the old SAP legacy systems into S4 HANA versions. So that's where actually most of the customers have started implementing MDG as well. So that's where you see these days MDG as a solution, and the requirement for MDG is also more in demand. Okay, we'll get more details about MDG in coming slides. So it's a quick outlook about the salary trends and everything. So these are the different industries where SAP has the products and solutions. Okay. So basically, the objective of this MDG course is so learning MDG, and then post this particular course, you should be able to start working on MDG implementation projects or any MDG support projects. And at the same time, you also should be able to get this MDG. You can actually give a certification in MDG as well. Okay, so it covers basically all the three things post this particular course. Okay, so this is a prerequisite. So you should have some the MDG SAP experience, right? So if you have a basic knowledge of SAP in any module, or either it can be like your ABAP, or probably if you are into functional, or if you are into some basis or bots or anything, right? From SAP, if you have some little bit of experience in SAP, so that would be a good start to start learning about MDG. Okay. So who are the target audience for this particular course? Like as I mentioned, any MD SAP consultants or ABAP or SAP technical folks, or who, if you have experience on MDM space, master data management area, that is also actually, they can also learn MDG. Okay. Yeah, so now this is the start point of SAP MDG. Okay, so before I get into this, what is MDG and what's the definition? What exactly MDG, what we do in MDG, right? I just wanted to check, does anyone have any questions?
This includes a more technical, like ABAP and stuff.
Yeah,
Or
I'll clarify that one. Yep, so good question. I'll clarify that.
okay, thank
Okay, great. So SAP MDG, Master Data Governance, right? So does anyone have any background? What is MDG, Master Data Governance? Any background about this? Okay, fine. So yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, it is a process of governance for the master data and make sure that is no master data it is duplicated on the system and work and processing in manner specific manner for the approvals or something like this.
Exactly. You are on
I
spot.
have one question.
Yeah,
The
please.
difference between MDG and MDM.
Yeah, I'll explain that one as well.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah. So now we are talking about something called master data. Okay. So master data. Okay. So when it in any, if you're working on any ERP solutions or any software, like it can be either SAP, or if you're working on Oracle, or if you're working on probably any other third-party softwares or anything, right? So there are two type of data. Basically, I would say broadly two categories of data that we deal with. One is we call it as a master data. The other one we call it as a transactional data. Okay, so these are the two kind of data. Okay, so examples for master data. Okay, so let's say for example, examples for master data is like customer master data, or is supplier master data, or in SAP terminology we call something called business partners, or we can something called material master. Okay, if you take in finance space, we deal with something called cost centers, profit centers, company code, okay, so cost element. So all these we call it as a master data. Okay, so master data is nothing but if at all you wanted to create a kind of a sales order, you wanted to run some transactional sales process with a particular customer. So what you do, you create a sales order, right? In the sales order, you mention what to whom you are selling these goods and what goods you are selling and what is the quantity, price, all that information you capture and you create a sales order. Okay, so there we are in that one. There are two master data involved. One is the customers to whom you are selling and what materials you are selling, right? So these are the examples for the master data. Okay, so similarly, when you're buying in your organization, when you're buying some products from a particular vendor or supplier, you wanted to procure some goods, so you will buy it, right? So in that case, you initiate a purchase orders. So in the purchase orders, you will mention from whom you are buying this particular product. That's where you will, that is nothing but the supplier or vendor who supplies these particular goods and what materials you are buying from this particular supply and what is the quantity, price and all that stuff, right? So in all these things, whenever you are doing any business with some particular a person or a group or another organization, so definitely master data will be there. You need to set up that particular data in your system, and then on that particular master data you can actually initiate some transactional process. Okay, so that's where master data come into picture. And transactional data is nothing but sales orders, purchase orders, or your invoices, okay, or your goods movement documents. So whatever you do, right, like a kind of business with some other particular organization, so then that transactional activity, we call it as a kind of a transactional data. Okay, so now what is the difference between master data and transactional data? So master data is nothing but you set up once in your system and you keep this information and you use this information for longer duration. Like I wanted to do business with a particular supplier. Okay, so I'll set up that particular supplier record in my system and then I will use it to maybe years together until I end the transaction or business with that particular supplier. I keep on doing the business with this particular supplier or customer or partners, right? So you set up it once and you basically this is meant for the longer duration. Okay, and very rarely this master data will get changed. We cannot change the address or bank data of a customer or supplier on regular basis. So once you set up, that will be there for the longer duration. Maybe if the supplier shifted from one location to other location, so in that case, you will change the address of that particular supplier or customer. Right. Similar. So that's where the master data will be set up once, and it will hardly go for any changes. Very rarely. Okay. Similarly, when you're transactional data, so transactional data, the life of transactional data is very small. When I say small, you wanted to have a sales process, sales transaction with a particular customer. You create a sales order. Then after that, you initiate the goods movement. Customer send the invoice to the customer. Customer will pay that invoice, and then your transaction activity is closed. Okay, so the lifespan of your transactional data is very small. Okay, so that's the difference between master data and transactional data. Okay, now before MDG also in any SAP system, I'm talking especially with the SAP, but the same applies for any other Oracle or any other softwares. Okay, so in SAP before MDG also we deal with the master data and we also deal with the transactional data. Okay, so what we do, we create the master data in SAP system, and using this particular master data, we can use this master data in the transactional activities. Okay, so all this is working fine, going well. Okay, now SAP suddenly introduced something called MDG. Okay, MDG stands for Master Data Governance. Okay, so the name itself it says that we wanted to govern the master data. Okay, so what do you mean by governance? Governance means basically you wanted to control the master data creation or change process. Your organization wants to control the master data creation change process, right? So that's what that control the governance process means basically who are supposed to create this data, who are the so who supposed to change this particular master data. Only the authorized people supposed to do this particular activities, and it has to go for some review process. If someone is changing something, it has to go for a review process. It has to be reviewed by the experts in that particular area. And once the experts review and they say, okay, this data is good to go, then only this data can be used for any transactional purpose. Okay, so that is what at very high level we wanted to govern that particular master data. Okay, so this particular using MDG, and this process, this whole process is not there without MDG. Okay, so earlier in SAP terminology, what we do is there is a dedicated transaction codes to create your master data. That means I log into the system and I will use that. Let me quickly show you. So I'll give in between some time for Q&A. Just please hold on your questions. Okay. If at all I wanted to create a material, so what I do, I go to the respective transaction code. MM01 is the transaction code where I supposed to create material. Okay. So this is without MDG. In SAP, you have this particular transaction code where you can actually create a material. Okay. So you can input the data, some basic information. Once you enter into this, and it will take you to multiple view screens where you can provide all the data, material related data. And once finally, when you click the save submit button, the material will get created in the system. Okay. So this is a traditional way of creating a material in SAP. Okay. But in this process, what happens is if I have the authorization, I can enter the data and I can create a material. So it doesn't validate anything in the backend, whether whatever I'm creating the material here, whether it is the right material or the information that I input, whether it is a correct information or not. Maybe the material already existing in the system, but unknowingly I'm creating a new material. That means I'm introducing some new duplicates to my system. So all that kind of things are not there as part in your traditional way. Okay. So what happens with MDG? So SAP introduced this kind of governance flavor where the ultimate goal is to create the master data. Even using MDG also, you wanted to create the master data only. That means like customers, suppliers, partners, materials, all master data wanted to create. But the difference is MDG comes up with the kind of some governance capabilities. So those governance capabilities, what are those governance capabilities? We will discuss. Okay. So using those MDG specific governance capabilities, you can govern your master data that ensures that the right people are creating the master data in the system and the right processes are set up and the right rules are set up in the system. So that means whatever the material that I create and using MDG, right? So that is the golden record for me. Okay, just for your simple visualization purpose, I will just draw one simple picture so that you will understand what is the difference of creating a material using MDG versus directly creating a material in SAP. Always remember, directly creating a material in SAP without MDG means you using the regular T codes. Okay, so now, so I'll just simply draw one simple picture so that you will understand better. Assume that this is your SAP system. Okay, so this is your SAP system. Okay, SAP ERP layer. Okay, so here you usually to create your materials, right? Like material master or business partners, customers or vendors. Okay, all this particular master data we create using the respective T codes. You go to the respective T code transaction code and you enter the data and create the master data. Okay, so this data directly gets stored in your backend tables. So master data tables. Fine. Now if at all I have to create the same material using MDG, that means once you activate your MDG add-on component in the system, that means there will be some new component will be available in the same SAP system. It's the same SAP system I'm talking, but it will add up some MDG related functionalities. So now this is your MDG specific layer, okay, in the same system. So here MDG provided certain UI applications. Okay, so where user can log into the MDG UI applications, he can enter the data, okay, all the master data input. So whatever user earlier doing here, the same user now will be doing here in MDG layer. Okay, so he will create the master data using the respect to the standard SAP delivered applications. And this data, what happens is this data will go for a review process. It will go for review process. Review process means like it triggers the workflows where a requester submits the data, it goes to the approver, maybe plant approver or probably sales team, purchasing team. So it will go for a review process with different departments, depends on the process you configure for that particular master data. So it will go for all the approvers review process, and those reviewers or approvers will further enrich your master data. They will review the data. If there is some mistake, they correct the data. If they think that this record is a duplicate record, they can reject that request as well. So likewise, they do all the review process. And after all these things, once the data that is coming out of this particular MDG process is the golden record, we consider this golden record as a master data. So this data will come and sit in your the same backend application tables. Okay, so it's a instead of creating the material or master data here, now we are creating the master data using MDG layer. Okay, so in this MDG layer, so SAP introduced lot of functionalities, lot of processes, tools, workflows to support your governance. Okay, so that we will actually discuss as part of this course. As part of this entire course, we will be discussing what features that SAP enabled in MDG that makes different from traditional way of creation of your master data. Okay, so fine. Now coming to this definition. So if you look at this definition of your MDG, SAP MDG is the state-of-the-art master data management solution providing out-of-box domain-specific master data governance. Okay, so this allows users to centrally create, change, and distribute or consolidate the master data across in your landscape. Okay, so basically it talks about 2 points. One is it's MDG as a solution. Okay, so providing out-of-box domain-specific master data. That means once you activate your MDG solution in any SAP system, it's a kind of plug and play. There are certain master data SAP already provided out-of-box solution. Out-of-box solution means if you take for material master, business partners, customer master, supplier master, okay, your finance objects like a cost center, profit center, cost element, okay, and if you're working on SAP PM, plant maintenance module, we talk about something called equipments, functional locations, okay, bill of materials. So like this, all these are the out-of-box solutions that SAP already built as part of your MDG. And as and when you activate your MDG solution, so for all these masters, whatever the master data I mentioned over here, these can be kind of plug and play. So you can do little bit of configuration for your respective master data, and you can start using this MDG solution to create these master data. Okay, so that's why it says that out of box domain specific solutions. Okay, so SAP already provided some out-of-box solutions. Out-of-box solutions means for all these master data, whatever I mentioned, the UI applications, workflows, all the rules, everything is already pre-built, and you can on top of that one, you can customize as per your business requirements. Okay, so you can enable that MDG for these master data like kind of with less time. Okay, so depends on your organization complexity, the processes that they are providing. So you can do little bit of customizing for this master data, and you can enable this one, including your data migration and everything. Okay, so that is what it talks about out-of-box domain-specific master data governance solutions, and also it allows you to centrally create and change and distribute or consolidate the master data across your landscape. So that means in any MDG, I mean in any organization, the typical architecture of MDG is something like that. So you'll have your SAP MDG system. Okay, so this system you exclusively use to create your master data or change the master data. It can be any master data, whatever master data. When I say it's your MMBP, customer, supplier, all that whatever I mentioned earlier, right? So all the master data you can actually centrally create or change, maintain in this particular SAP system. And after that, once that is done, you can distribute this master data to all your target systems. So in your organization, assume that you will be having multiple systems. Maybe you will be having some SAP systems where you actually run your transactional processes, or you can have some like a SRM, okay, or CRM kind of systems, or it can be like non SAP systems as well, non-SAP systems. So in these particular systems, we don't create or change the data. Always any master data change the system, and as soon as your changes are completed, this data will be replicated to all the respective target systems. Okay, so that is what the second part of this particular definition. Okay, so this is about MDG. So in this process, when I say create or change, basically you are governing the entire master data, right? So what are the here we will be using lot of tools, lot of configurations, function. I mean whatever SAP provided, right? So everything there are all the tools, everything is available to support or to enable the governance for your master data. Okay, so that's about high level about what is SAP MDG. Okay, now you can see here. Yeah, I'll just take a pause and any questions from anyone so far?
Yeah, how do you do the data classification, master data
Data
classification?
classification. What do you mean by
Yeah,
classification?
because when we create a material in SAP, you have like a classification characteristics, right? That the material class equal to 001.
Classification you are
So
talking, right? Yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
your
So we need
MDG
to.
also. Yeah. Please go ahead. Finish your.
Yeah, so even this generally what we do is we define the master characteristics in SAP and then assign those master characteristics to the material to the class 001, right? So when we do like that, so you need to create those characteristics before in SAP and then or in S4 and then sync it back to MDG. No, you can directly create those characteristics in MDG and assign it and then put it back to.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
Okay, so yeah, so with respect to the classification, so let me explain. It's any other configurations as well. Let's say, for example, here, if you look at this is your MDG system, okay, SAP MDG system, and this is your the regular transactional system where your sales orders or purchase orders, all the transaction happens. So what I'm saying, always you create the master data in SAP MDG and you distribute the data to this particular system. Now the question here is talking about your question is mainly with respect to the classification. Okay, so now I'm adding more context to this the same question. Like along with the classification, we also talk about like all your configuration data, like your material types. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My other question was that also because do we need to as I know that we need to create material types or whatever, like a G material type, a port and all that's okay, but rest of the material types we
yeah, material types, material groups, even in fact your plants or your company code, sales organizations, all these are the kind of config data, right? So there are all this data has to be ultimately this data has to be available in both the systems here and here because even I'm creating the material here. So while creating the material here, I need that config data, including classification characteristics and everything. And when I distribute this data, when this data goes to this target system and when it gets posted in this particular target system also, I need the data. If I don't have the data here, the posting will get failed, right? When I send through some IDOC or something, it will get failed. So ultimately the point is the data config data has to be available in both the systems. Okay, so now whether you do the in most of the cases wherever we have this MDG, so we actually do the configuration in SAP system, all your SPRO configurations and everything, because this SAP MDG also nothing but another SAP ERP system only. So you will have everything, your SPRO, everything. So here itself, I create everything. The same you will see. Also, both your SAP MDG system and your target systems should have the same kind of configurations, including classifications, characteristics, company codes, purchasing organizations, account, vendor account group, customer account group, BP groups. Everything has to be available in both the systems. If someone adding a new plant here, they need to ensure that the new plant should be available over here. So how do you
that is
ensure?
right, Akshay. So you're saying that especially for the classification characteristics or the configuration of this material types, plant and company codes. We first do it in your S4 system and then sync it back to SAP MDG. Is that the way you'd say? You know, you do it here manually or you do it here manually in the MDG also?
So there are different techniques different people follow. See, either you first create here and do that, distribute the same configuration to your SAP transactional system. Okay, this one can be either manual, or if you have some people will use the charm tool. So you create a transport over here, capture that under the transport, and import the same transport, sync that same transport over here using the charm. Okay.
Okay.
So basically, there are different ways how you actually sync it, but ultimately, either you can actually do first create here and then sync it over here, create the config data and sync it to here. Anything is possible because when you it depends on your system setup and the alignment that you have with the transactional team. Either you can do here and then replicate here. That is also fine. But how do you sync from one SAP system to other SAP system? That's why there are multiple options are there using the charm tool or BCC or manual. So there are different techniques are there that we will discuss during the course. But the ultimate, to answer your question, yes, the same config data has to be available in both the systems, and that can be done. That can be done using different ways.
Okay.
Question so this is under the assumption that it's a standalone MDG system, right? Not embedded MDG within S4HANA.
There are different ways that comes about again to the deployment. Where do you install your MDG component? Both options are there. You can have your MDG on your running a transactional system, or you can have a separator system. Both are possible that we will discuss in the deployment topic. Okay, but both options are there. You can have a standalone MDG system, or you can install the same MDG on your existing ECC or S4 system.
Is there a difference between the two? Some limitations in...
Yes, there are certain limitation, pros and cons are there in each of those approaches. We'll discuss that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So now any other questions? Great. So now let's discuss about the high level most important features in MDG. Okay, so when you start enabling MDG component for master data governance process, okay, so some of the important features that we actually deal with over here. So first one is the governance. So governance, by this time you might have some idea that, okay, so the master data creation process, right? So what happens, a typical in MDG environment, how do you create a master data? What are the typical process that, okay, let's say for example, I wanted to create a material or customer. So a requester means who actually wants to create the data. So he will actually initiate a process where he will enter the data, okay, in MDG application. Okay, so in MDG application, they enter the data. Okay, so now let me show you for your visualization purpose quickly. I'll just show you so that you can visualize how it look like. Okay, so now you can see here, there are different pages are there. This is the material governance home page. Okay, so that means here you have all different whatever you wanted to perform. So depends on the rules, you have different applications where you can actually access. Okay, so you can search the materials in the system. Okay, you can create a new materials, you can perform a change operation, or you can actually perform a mark for deletion operation. And here you can perform a mass operation for the master data. Okay, I wanted to probably extend maybe some 10,000 materials at a time because we introduced a new plant and all the materials we wanted to extend to the new plant. So that's where actually the mass operations come into picture. Okay, so to support your mass operations, SAP MDG provided certain tools where you can perform the mass operation. Okay, and similarly you have some change, like let's say for example for audit purpose, right? So usually I create a material, so then after that someone changed the material, some properties. Now I wanted to review who changed, what values he changed, all that purpose, right? So that's where actually audit tries come into picture, and all to support your audits also, MDG also deal with all the change documents and everything. So that actually there are certain UI applications where you deal with. Okay, now coming back to first to our how the MDG UI look like, right? So now you can see there is something called create material. Let's say for example, I will try to create a, so this is where the requester or whoever wants to create a material, so they'll access this UI application, okay, from here. So let's say, for example, okay, now you can see this is the UI application similar to your MM01 in your ERP side. Okay, if in ERP you go to this MM01 and create a material, right? MM01. Okay, so I enter, let's say, for example, industry sector. I'll choose some material type, finished product. Okay, now, so now I can see there are different views for the same material. You can choose whatever the views that you wanted to maintain. The same views you also see over here. Okay, you can see material basic data can be maintained over here. Material descriptions can be maintained over here. Dimensions, so your class, characteristics, purchasing related information, sales related information. So all these you can expand this and you can maintain that. So this is a browser based version of your MM01 only, but this is your MDG UI application. This is not your exactly the MM01, but the fields, the attributes, everything is, you can compare 1-to-1 from your MM01 to here. But this is SAP MDG UI application for material master creation. Okay, so now the requester, when I say requester, who wants to initiate a change process, it can be the create or change, he will enter all that data and finally click the submit button. So when he clicks the submit button, that means requester will enter the data and he will submit, and it goes to, let's say, for example, procurement team to review the data. Now procurement team, either they can review the data or they can further enrich. So they can further enrich the data. They'll maintain procurement related attributes and they submit that request. Then it goes to, let's say, for example, maybe finance team, and finance team will review the data and they will further enrich finance related attributes, and then they submit it. It goes to, let's say, for example, sales. Okay, and sales team will review the data and they will actually submit it. And finally, this data will be activated. When I say activated, that means this data will be replicated to your target systems and it will be made available to use for your transactional processes. So now if you look at this process, to create your material or change a material, there are multiple people involved. There are multiple stages, multiple people. This is one example. It's not like all the time you have to follow this approach. Depends on your, let's say for finished goods, I wanted to follow this approach. For maybe other material types, for raw materials, I wanted to directly create that material. I don't want any review process, right? So it depends on your business scenarios. Okay, you can configure your workflows in such a way that the data will be reviewed and attested by this respect to the teams. Okay, so now in MDG, the data creation is not by a single person. Okay, it will be all these people are involved in your master data setup process. Okay, and these people are the experts in those areas. So that's why whatever we say, whatever the data that is getting created through my MDG process, that is my golden record. It's my golden record because it is reviewed by all the people. Okay, so now this is a typical master data MDG creation process. So when I say governance, this is one of the aspect of governance. All these people are reviewing. Okay, so here in this process, we will be adding multiple different type of features. Let's say this requester will only allow to maintain the basic data, and he is not supposed to see the other views of material master. Or maybe let's say bank data or tax data, he's not allowed to edit or not allowed to see. So for requester, that information will be either read only or it will be hidden. And at the procurement or at the next level, whatever the data that he is supposed to review and he's supposed to enter, so he will do only that one. The other views can be, you can make it as a read only or probably hide for this particular person. So likewise, the roles will be clearly defined for each of these persons and they will do only that certain activity. Okay, so this is again another aspect of the governance principles. Okay, so coming back to our topic, so the first and foremost the feature is the governance, where it adds all these reviews and you stage the data and the people will work on the staging record, and finally after all the approvals, the data record will get activated and it will be made available for your transactional process. That is one thing. The second one is the consistency. So we discussed some features like the workflows, or depends on the roles you wanted to hide and everything, the UI applications, the search applications. So if I open this, so now this is the material governance. So you can see here, this UI application, this home page, okay, where you have the search materials, create materials. If I go to the search material, you can perform search on your material master, depends on different parameters. I can search the data based on materials, different parameters, or in fact, I wanted to search materials based on some classification as well. So I have an option where I can actually use my class and characteristics. I can perform the search based on that one. Okay. So now this is one UI application SAP provided for material governance. If I go to the business partner governance as well, okay, I will have that same kind of UI application. Here also you see search business partners. You can search the business partners. Okay. So now in this one, you can search business partners based on different parameters. You can search based on classification as well. You can search the partners with classification based on bank data rows and all those things. So what I'm trying to say here, the UI applications, the workflows, or the backend rules that you configure, checks, validations, derivations, your duplicate check configuration, all MDG features. If you learn for one object how to configure, the same concept you need to apply the same for other objects as well. So that's where actually it has that consistency approach. Consistency means basically you no need to learn, okay, for material master, MDG material master, MDG BP, MDG customer. So the application concept, application functionality might be different, but from the MDG standpoint, how to enhance your UI applications or how to configure your UI applications, how to configure the workflows, duplicate check, search applications, everything remains same for all the objects. Okay, so that's what the consistency. Now consolidation. So consolidation is one SAP introduced most recently. It talks about in certain organizations, right? So you get the data from, in some organizations, what happens is, assume that you have your SAP MDG system and you have your target systems where the data will get distributed to this target system. But is it the only one place all the time the users will create the master data? No. Some organizations, what happens, they will be having their own systems to create the master data. It can be like a SAP or non-SAP systems. Okay, so the users will initiate the master data here itself. But when you get the data into, so what happens is we get all the data into MDG, and the same record might be coming from here and here from the two source systems. So in that case, I wanted you, it gives an option where you can keep both records as a separate records, or you can club both the records and represent in MDG with a one single record. In the source systems, both will be two different records, and in MDG, it will be a single record. Okay. So for that one, to support your consolidation process, where you wanted to consolidate, so SAP provides certain functionality, certain features in MDG, right? So that we will discuss in terms in a component called MDC, Master Data Consolidation. Okay, so this is a master data governance and this is a master data consolidation. So in the consolidation topic, we will discuss all the features of that one. Then coming back to integration. So integration is, as by this time, if you look at your MDG is a centralized master data, which has to connect with multiple source and target systems, right? I wanted to connect to multiple source systems, and at the same time, I also wanted to enable that integration to multiple target systems. So MDG also flexible, it provides certain framework to integrate, to connect your source and target systems with MDG. So MDG uses certain SAP proprietary techniques to integrate your MDG with other surrounding systems. Next one is the flexibility. So flexibility is, so far we are talking about, okay, MDG out of box objects are like material master, BP, customer master, vendor master. So likewise, there are some out of box objects are already there. Now, MDG only supports these objects. Okay, to answer that, no, MDG, these are the out-of-box objects where you get a ready-made UI applications. Now you see here, all your search applications, your master data create applications, okay, these governance home pages to perform mass operations, all these things are readily available for your material master, business partners, customer master, vendor master. But that doesn't mean that it supports only these objects. Maybe it also supports the other objects as well. So we call that as the custom objects. It comes under custom objects. When I say example for the custom objects, let's take, for example, employee master. The employee master is not covered in the out-of-box list. That's where you can configure employee master also. You can govern employee master also in MDG. But for that one, you need to build from scratch all the required tools to enable the governance for your employee master, so that you need to build that one. For this out-of-box objects, these are already available. For the custom objects, you need to create everything. But your MDG framework supports this building a custom objects as well. Okay, so that's where actually it talks about the flexibility where you can extend MDG solutions for your own master data. Because in certain organizations, I wanted to govern plant creation as well, or someone wants to govern employee master, I wanted to govern WBS element. So likewise, if you have any of your own master data which is not covered as part of the out-of-box, so that can be used, the MDG framework supports. Okay, now the next one is the data quality. So in this entire MDG course, basically we talk about mainly 3 topics. Of course, MDG is the main, okay? And after that, as I mentioned, there is something called consolidation. This is again another component. And the third one is the DQM, data quality management. Okay, so this particular DQM also recently introduced, and it only works in S/4HANA only. Okay, so how you can actually, so we are enabling the governance and everything to govern your master data, but I wanted to measure, okay, all the governance process, everything is established, but I wanted to measure how much data quality I have. Let's say I have maybe 1 million of materials. So out of all this 1 million, I wanted to measure some quality, whether I have a good data or do I have any duplicate records and all that stuff. So this DQM helps you to configure your rules. By business can configure such kind of rules, and they can run the evaluation process. So what is this DQM? We will discuss in detail in this particular course. Okay, but data quality is also one of the feature where you can measure your master data. So with this one, it enables you to identify the defect records or identify the problematic records, and you can initiate a change or you can correct the data as well. Okay, so that's where DQM will be helpful. So at very high level, these are some of the important features from MDG. Okay, and there are much more are there, but we will discuss during the course. Any question?
One quick question. Most of the companies, they wanted to see the 360 degrees view of material or 360 degrees view of a business partner. What I mean is like, there are, MDG is a central distribution systems to distribute the master data to SAP and also to the Salesforce and other systems also, right?
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
So, for example, there are some fields which are required to do business in SAP, and then there are some fields also required for Salesforce, which are not required in SAP.
Yes.
So
yes.
You might need to enhance those fields in the master data, and then when you distribute, everything will go to SAP except those, G fields. Those G fields, everything
Yes.
will go to CRM plus also the G fields to CRM. So, how much is the flexibility to enhance the fields of the master data there in MDG?
So this, let's say, for example, I'll take material master. So in material master, let's say, for example, you have all the standard SAP delivered attributes. Okay. Now, along with that one, if at all we wanted to, this is a very common requirement, like I wanted to enhance my material master with some custom attributes, Z attributes. Okay. So your MDG supports enhancing your out-of-box objects like your MMBP, vendor, customer, material, everything, all these objects. It supports to add your own business specific attribution like that ZR, the extension. MDG supports the extension. And at the same time, let's say, for example, in any organization, what happens is, let's say the most critical attributes I wanted to govern in MDG. Okay, so this is your MDG. And these are some target systems. It can be either SAP or non-SAP system. For material master, let's say it has around 200 attributes. Assume that, including 150 standard plus 50 custom attributes. Okay. Now, these 150 attributes, and maybe out of these 50 attributes, 25 attributes are the key attributes which are common across both T1 and T2. So you actually maintain this 150 plus 25 in your MDG. You govern this one. The remaining 25 attributes are excluded from the governance. That means these 25 attributes won't be not part of your MDG. So when you replicate, you can ensure that only you replicate this information. These remaining 25 attributes will be maintained or governed locally in the respective transactional systems. So that also it supports.
It means that, you're saying that these 150 attributes will come out of the box, correct? Because
Yes.
those fields are available in SAP,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then the extra 25 fields, you define that in the MDG, or you can also define the target system. That's what you're saying, right, Akshay?
Yeah, so see here, let's say you just need only the 25 attributes in MDG. So just only extend with 25 attributes only.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, exactly.
And the remaining 20 attributes, you can do it as your wish. You can extend, enhance in your respective target systems.
Okay, when we completely agree with you. Suppose, the 25 fields we enhanced in the T1 system once the material has been distributed there. So again, with those 150 plus 25, these 25 fields, again, you'll sync back to the MDG as a central system to maintain as a one single truth.
You are talking about these 25?
Yes, yes.
Why I need this 25 back to in MDG if these are not governed in my MDG?
Very good question. Why means the MDG we are thinking as the one of the single source of truth for all the systems we are maintaining at MDG, right? In that context, I would like to put these 25 also here, so that at one single place I have all the attributes. In case if I wanted to extract this information into my BI or HANA, it will be easy for me, right?
Yeah, I got your point. That is also possible. That's the reason. First, if you look at here, I mentioned 50 attributes, 25 here and 25 the other one. So you can always replicate back, sync back the remaining 25 attributes. But again, it depends on the different conditions. Why? Because in T1, you are extending with 25. One of the attribute value is A because I'm maintaining here locally. And in T2, you also extended the 25 attributes, but here because both are two separate systems, you maintaining B. Now, whether I wanted to maintain A or B, because here in MDG, I'll have exactly only those 25 attributes. My system can take either A or B only, right? So that's the point actually. So if you are maintaining both the values, same values in both the systems, you can obviously replicate back. Technically, that is possible.
Okay, and thank you. And one more question is, you talked about the custom model, the custom object, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, from out of the box, as you said, that it is getting only your customer master, your business partner and material master, and also the finance, like your GL master, and then cost center, and then cost elements, and etc., right?
Yes.
At some point of time, if the company decides that I want the employee master also, and how difficult it is to create your own event types and attributes and etc. So how normal is this situation in any company?
This is a common requirement in many organizations. They go with the custom objects, whatever is not covered as part of the out of box. So it depends on the object that you are building the custom object. It will spread. It will be like medium complexity to high complexity. Depends on your object. Okay. Now, the thing in this particular course, I will be covering basically two scenarios. One is when we are discussing about all these topics of MDG features, I'll be covering one use case is a custom object, a brand new object. We take some example and a brand new object and how I can enable all the governance process for this brand new object. This is one use case. The other use case is we will extend the standard models, the standard objects. Okay, so standard objects list, we will take example of BP or customer or vendor, any object, and how to extend this MD. So these are the only two requirement use cases that you see in any MDG. While implementing, you will be, for sure, you will have the standard object extensions implementation. Along with that one, custom object also we will be discussing in this course.
Okay.
So then you will understand how complex or simple. I would say it's a medium kind of complexity, but we can create. That's what I will show you how to create and everything in this course.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So yeah, I think this is one slide shows a need for MDG. So because by this time we know, right? So we wanted to, we need a clean master data in my organization. When I say clean master data, I don't want any duplicates. whatever the data I have for my master data, that should be a right data. I should have a correct address, valid address. I should have a valid bank data and everything. If I don't have any of these things, what happens is it will lead to some on the business process side. It will definitely have some impact in terms of your sales or in terms of your purchase process. It will affect your transactional processes. If your master data is not correct, definitely it will impact some transactional process. Simple example: if you have a old address data, so your sales process may get delayed. It will go for a wrong delivery, right? So that will lead to a customer not a good insatisfaction kind of thing, right? So that's where actually master data should be clean and clear. So that is the main agenda of this, the motive or goal of this MDG. Okay. So these are the key trends. So whatever the areas that we are talking about, the master data can go like anywhere, right? You will be using in your multiple processes in your business. Everywhere you have the master data. Without master data, there is no transactional happening, right? So that's where actually whatever the areas that master data is in, that's why your MDG is always cutting across all the modules. So it cuts your or sales SD or your finance related, your SRM or your supply chain process. Everywhere it cuts with master data, because in all these areas we use our master data. Okay. So the capabilities we just discussed, like there are out of box objects are also there. Okay. And you can use those, you can start implementing, and at the same time you can also create your custom objects. It supports the extension of the master data and integration. When it comes to the integration, you can MDG provided supports the framework to integrate to all sort of the target systems or source systems. It can be either SAP or non-SAP systems. Okay. And governance flavor, this is the main goal of your master data, right? Where we need to enable the governance process and data quality and all that stuff. Okay. So that is so workflows and everything we discussed at very high level. Okay. So this is the MDG architecture. And in the next session, we will discuss. So whatever we discussed so far at very high level. So now we will be discussing in detail. Everything is part of your architecture, and whatever you see, every box over here in this architecture, right? So the central one is your SAP MDG system, which shows all the features, each and every capability of MDG highlighted over here. Each one is a topic for us in the course. Okay, so being it your data models, your UI applications, workflows, rules, validations, derivations, your change request process, configuring the search applications, okay, your analytical apps, okay, your replication, everything is a topic for us in the course. So first, in the next session, we will discuss at very high level what is the significance of each of these features, and then we will be discussing in each topic. We will be discussing in detail about the respective features. Okay. So that is one thing. And also these are at very high level, you can see the out of box objects like a material master is there, and a supplier master, customer master, and business partner data. And in the finance, it covers all cost center, GL accounts, cost elements and everything. Along with that one, on the right hand side, you can see there are EAM, enterprise asset management. So this is in plant maintenance module. So we have some master data like equipments, functional locations, bill of materials. Those are master data objects. And in the RFM solution, this is in SAP IS retail space, we deal with article master. Okay, so MDG also supports this. There is an out-of-box solutions available for RFM as well, where you can create the articles and everything using MDG. Okay, so these are the out-of-box objects that are available. Anything which is not defined or not mentioned over here that you think you wanted to govern in MDG, that comes under the custom object solution for us. Okay, so this is at very high level what is MDG, a glimpse of MDG, what we are going to do, what we are going to learn. Okay, coming back to the few questions, whatever someone asked, right? So what is the MDG like? Is it a complete technical or functional? So I would say in MDG, 70% we do functional configurations. Okay, and there will be some 30% of the portion where the technical people actually do. So when I say in MDG, we will have MDG functional, two roles. MDG functional role will be there and MDG technical role will be there. Okay, so in technical role, so these are nothing but basically they are the ABAPers. Okay, so these are the ABAPers who can actually learn MDG. So they can actually cover this 70%, and they can also do this 30% one, because here we will be majorly implementing some baddies for certain use cases to handle some of the requirements. So we implement some baddies, we write some ABAP logic code and everything. Okay, so that's where ABAPers basically can do this particular 30% as well. So the 70% is basically the through configurations. We will be extending the models, we will be configuring the custom models without writing single line of code. We'll be building the UI applications, workflows, everything without single line of code. But there are certain exceptions where to handle some of the requirements, you need to write some ABAP logic. That's where the MDG technical folks come into picture. Okay, so as part of this course, I'll be covering both technical and functional as well. So here, when I say functional, so if you have some basic background of SD, MM, or finance objects, so that would be more than enough. So these SD consultants, MM consultants, or FI consultants, right? So they can also upskill their knowledge on MDG, so that these consultants will be aware of how different it is creation of the master data in MDG, and they also anyway have idea of what is happening on the transactional side as well. So does it answer the question? Gopa, someone has this question, right? Divakar.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, fine. So any other questions from anyone?
End of the class, do we also get this deck to go through?
Yes. So you'll be getting, and I'll be actually using let me show you. So there's another, this is only for the demo purpose, but I'll be having another main PPT, which will use for the entire course. Okay, so as part of this course, I'll be first explaining the concepts, and after that, we'll be building all the scenarios in the system. Okay, so that you get that hands-on feel as well. And I'll be providing some scenarios to you, so that during your weekday, whenever you have some time, you can work on those examples. And if you have any questions in the next session, probably we will be discussing. Okay, so this talks about all this we will be learning as part of this course, like as I mentioned, the MDG process, right? So this we will be discussing as part of the course. Okay, so I'll just skip these slides because we'll discuss in detail about this.
One question regarding difference between MDG and MDM.
Yeah, okay, sure. So let me explain that. So I'm sharing my screen. So MDM, right? So MDM is a master MDM. So master data management, and whatever we are learning is the MDG. Okay. So MDM is also to govern the master data, but this is not based on your SAP ABAP stock, or it's a third party solution. Okay. It is not based on your ERP solution. Okay. It's altogether a separate one, non-SAP product. But what SAP has done is SAP acquired this MDM because there are many customers that are actually using MDM for master data governance process. Okay, but in MDM, it is not based on your SAP ERP solution or ERP solution. It built in some other technology, non-SAP technology. Okay, what SAP has done is SAP acquired this MDM, and they actually basically SAP come up with this MDG solution. So this is SAP version of MDM only. Okay, so but this MDG is built on top of your SAP system. Okay, now it reuses your underlying ABAP stack, your underlying ERP configuration, everything it reuses. Okay, your MDG. So that's why we call it as a SAP version of MDG. So now many customers this is a kind of old legacy one, who are already on MDM. So now they are in the process of migrating from MDM to MDG. But the goal and everything is same. Here also you wanted to govern the master data. Here also you wanted to govern the master data. But if you are on MDG, you have a lot of advantages, lot of benefits, because this is SAP version, and this is exactly sitting on your SAP system, on top of your SAP system. Many features you can reuse from your underlying SAP ERP configurations, whereas MDM is completely a non-SAP product. So you have to build everything. So it takes a lot of time in implementing your master data solutions in MDM, versus it is very faster, rapid solution. You can implement any master data governance using MDG.
Okay, got it. Another question. Sorry for this. Let's consider if that I have two company code. Both of them, they are raising requests for creating master data. Okay, but for the first one, can I do like approval process different than the second one?
Different process. Can you repeat your question? Now, so in MDM, you are talking about?
No, MDG. I'm creating MDG to create a material. MDG request to create a material. I have two company codes. Okay, both of them, I have a requester, and he should maintain some fields different than the others. And everyone should go through a different level of approval. We can say the first company code, they have 3 level of approval, and the second one they have more than 3. Is it applicable?
Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, so let's take up the creation process, right? So let's say, for example, you have finished products okay. So for finished products, so you have a process, something like that. You set up the workflow like a requester and approver, okay? And you'll have something called a steward, okay? Who will be the final approver, and finally you activate the data, okay? So this is the process we follow for finished products. Let's say, for example, maybe for raw materials, maybe the process can be different. Here, where you will be having the requester, only you can configure something called approvers, okay, and directly the activation. So there is no steward review. Or you'll have some, let's say, chemical material types. Here you will have, let's say, for example, requester and then directly the activation, okay. So depends on the material type you choose. Here, I'm just taking this condition, depends on the material type you choose, you can follow different approaches, okay. So it can be, all these are the flexible workflows. You just assume, okay, your business process, think about your business process, put in a paper that can be configured in MDG. That much of flexibility you have in MDG, okay. Now at the finisher, for this one itself, the requester submitted at approval level, you can take a call whether you wanted to send it to steward for review or you wanted to directly activate that request. So that is also that level of flexibility you have.
Is this a standard approach?
Sorry?
This is a standard?
Yeah, it's a standard. So SAP provided some standard workflows, so you can configure as per your business required. Okay, and you don't need to write single line of code in this case. Without writing code, you can configure all these things. Okay, we will discuss. There are parallel workflows are also there. Okay, as soon as the requester submits it, I wanted to send it to procurement team parallelly and sales team parallelly. Let them work on those, and finally, I wanted to activate that record. So sequential workflows, parallel workflows, and hybrid approach like sequential plus parallel. Everything we can configure in the system.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions?
Plus, regarding the notification. If the request is activated,
yeah, notifications are possible. You can trigger emails, you can trigger notifications to as per your business requirements.
SMS messages is applicable?
SMS is not a straightforward approach, but you can trigger the emails notifications. If there are certain APIs are there where you can trigger, the placeholders are there. From the placeholder, either you can trigger a notification or you can trigger SMS as well. So to trigger that SMS, you need that APIs to trigger that SMS.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great. So thank you all for registering for this webinar.